As I said earlier, our Soul Matters theme for this month is freedom. A year ago, I would never have dreamed that this topic would be so relevant. We hear daily news, more and more stories of civil rights violations and orders that ignore constitutional freedoms. And so when I was thinking about this topic and my brain immediately went in the direction of politics, this morning I'm going to put politics aside. Because while Unitarian Universalism rightly prides itself on recognizing the importance of world events and our ways of dealing with world events, this morning, I want to focus on the freedom of the individual soul. I recently read a sermon by the Reverend Darcy Lane, in which she talks about watching her dog make a bed for himself. She talks about how she gives him these blankets and pillows and towels, and he has all these things to work with, but yet he has also a bookshelf back here, a clothes basket over here, some boots over here, and yet he is constantly pushing to make space for himself. And as soon as he gets comfortable, he circles around and plops down. And I think sometimes, I love that image because I think sometimes that's what we need to do for ourselves. Because there are all these barriers to our freedom, but there needs to be a comfortable place for us within those limitations. Darcy says, we spend many Sundays talking about some of those big external obstacles to freedom: economic inequality, systemic racism, mass incarceration, rigid gender roles. But to be truly useful, our tradition must also help us when the external realities of our lives are unyielding. While we fight for freedom in the outer world, we must also claim the inner freedom that is also a type of resistance. Claim an inner freedom. Over and over again, we learn that resistance that is life-affirming begins with an unencumbered spirit. So world peace begins with a peaceful spirit. Environmental justice, I used to tell my children when they were growing up, begins when you learn how to clean up your room. And freedom begins when we learn to release our hearts from the thorns that we have embedded there. All of us have life situations that we cannot escape, situations that have no give. A diagnosis, the loss of a loved one, the sometimes numbing repetition of daily life. And because we are people of faith, we're called to compassion, and so that gives us limitations as well, shrinking our choices. How much time and attention do we give to causes and injustices that we care about? What is the right action of an aware citizen? How do covenants and promises and responsibilities and commitments constrict our freedoms? In his book called The Untethered Soul, and I love that title, The Untethered Soul, Michael Singer claims that our inner freedom is not based on any of these constraints, but on our commitment to release our inner thorns. As in our story this morning, we all have these emotional thorns that lie under our skin that we are trying to protect. And we don't want anything to touch them. We don't want life to change in a way that makes us uncomfortable. We don't want anything to rub up against our ideals. And so we use all kinds of mechanics: denial, repression, projection, to maintain our comfortable self at the expense of our inner freedom. Singer writes this. He says, the prerequisite to true freedom is to decide that you do not want to suffer anymore. You must decide that you want to enjoy your life and that there is no reason for stress, inner pain, or fear. Sounds a little Pollyannish, doesn't it? But he goes on, he says, every day we bear a burden that we should not be bearing. We fear we are not good enough or that we will fail. We experience insecurity, anxiety, self-consciousness. We fear that people will turn on us, take advantage of us, or stop loving us. All of these things burden us tremendously. Every day we are either feeling it or we are protecting ourselves from feeling it. It is such a core influence that we don't even realize how prevalent it is. End of quote. How do we free ourselves from these inner thorns? Well, it's really nothing new, and it's something that you have heard me talk about before, I am sure. We just stop poking the thorn. We stop for a moment and notice what a huge job we have given our minds to do. We've said to our minds, I need everyone to like me. I need everything I say and do to be acceptable and pleasing to everyone I meet. I need no one to hurt me. I need for nothing to happen that I don't like, and I need everything to happen that I do like. And then we say, okay, mind, now figure out how to make all those things happen. And we begin to build an apparatus around our thorn. And of course, it becomes really noisy inside our heads because it's going to be trying to give us advice about how to make all those things happen. And that creates a total absence of freedom. So the way to stop, take out that thorn, is to take time on a regular basis to pay attention to this happening. Maybe you have a regular meditation time while you watch these thoughts come out to play, and you think to yourself, there it is again, without any kind of judgment, because we all do this, so there's no reason to judge. But just watch those thoughts, how your thoughts are trying to fix everything around you. Or maybe if you don't feel you have the time for a meditation practice, Take a moment every time you buckle your seatbelt, every time you put your phone down, something that you do often, and just take a moment to pay attention to what your mind is trying to fix in that moment. What is your problem at that moment? Because there is a problem. There's always a problem. And when that problem is over, there will be another problem and another problem. Just watch this happening. Imagine the freedom that you could feel when you begin to watch this happening without judgment, and when you recognize that you don't need to fix anything to be okay in that moment. You don't need to fix anyone. You don't need to fix any situation. You can actually get to know the person in front of you instead of trying to fix them. You could live and experience your life instead of trying to fix what's broken inside you or fix what's broken outside of you. This is what Singer means by removing the thorn, falling behind the noise, to just watch. I think we need to have the humility to recognize that our minds have very little control over this world. We can't control the weather. We can't control natural forces. There's very little we can do to control people, places, and things around us. We give our minds an impossible task by asking it to constantly manipulate the world around us in order to fix our inner thorns. Our minds are not qualified for this job, my friends. But as we practice falling behind the noise, we can become clearer about what our minds are actually qualified and capable of doing. Philosophers and ethicists since Immanuel Kant have talked about the three movements of moral choice. Three movements of moral choice. The first is the movement where we develop a sense of the world and our place in it. This is the movement that provides a unique understanding of what morally correct action is. It's our place of personal integrity. And then the second movement is where our interaction with the world meets our cognitive powers. And so we begin planning options for a response. And then the final movement is moving from a decision to an action. The exercise that I've mentioned above of falling behind the noise gives us the ability to slow down that process and to provide some space between each of those movements. And this improves our decision making. So the inner freedom that I'm talking about is not about navel gazing and making sure that you are happy and carefree. It's not about the absence of all constraints. It's about clearing our minds, pushing a place of comfort within those constraints so that we can stay tethered to our personal integrity and to the things that are near and dear to our hearts. Inner freedom makes us less likely to be trapped or lured by the projects and the priorities of other people. When we fall behind the noise of our everyday lives, we can begin to ask the important questions. Is this worthy of my commitment? Does this decision feel life-affirming? And maybe most importantly, does this voice inside my head right now feel quiet and peaceful? Does it meet with my own needs for personal integrity? Or does it feel despotic and dictatorial? One of my favorite saints who learned to fall behind the noise in order to lead an exemplary life was Mother Teresa. And she learned so well the lesson to remove those inner thorns so that you can hear that deep voice within and not get caught up in what everybody else was telling you needed to do. And so I want to read these words by her, as I think they sum it up very well. She says this: people are often unreasonable, illogical, and self-centered. Forgive them anyway. If you are kind, people may accuse you of selfish, ulterior motives. Be kind anyway. If you are successful, you will win some false friends and some true friends. Succeed anyway. What you spend your years building, someone could destroy overnight. Build anyway. If you are honest and frank, people may cheat you. Be honest and frank anyway. If you find serenity and happiness, they may be jealous. Be happy anyway. The good you do today, people will often forget tomorrow. Do good anyway. Give the world your best anyway. Because you see, in the final analysis, it is between you and God. It was never between you and them anyway. A faith like ours needs to be enacted. It needs to be lived in action. Action coming from a free, unencumbered heart. May we become communities of resistance, not only collaborating in the work of justice, but creating sanctuaries for our spirits here in community and individually in our own hearts, falling behind the noise in order to give the world our best. May it be so, and blessed be.